So while we're waiting for some technical issues to be sorted through here with the media, I'd just like to remember that one of the reasons we've called this press conference is specifically, we're having a protest on Friday, September the 12th, this coming Friday at 2:30 at the Garrison Grounds. And then on Saturday, September 13th at 12 noon, we will be at the Halifax Commons.
Yeah, you guys.
Okay, so thank you all, I know, for coming out at noon on a very busy day. I know people have busy lives, but I think the gravity of what is unfolding in Gaza, a genocide that has been perpetrated in public light, and with the complicity of so many Western governments, and the psychotic and maniacal way in which it's been persecuted, has really touched the conscience and nerves, not just of Haligonians, but of the entire world conscience. Oh, thank you. So once again, thank you all for coming out. It's great to see that in our second press conference that we've held of the Halifax Committee Against Imperialist War and Genocide, we're bringing together various groups who are involved in defending Palestinian rights, but opposing this genocide, calling for it not only to be stopped, but also for people to be held to account for the horrific crimes that they have committed. It's great to see people here. And as I said before the mic was handed to me, the fact that you've come out on these busy days and your busy schedules demonstrates how much the world's conscience, not just Haligonians, have been touched, okay, have been moved, not just to sorrow, not just to pity, but to action to oppose the crime of the 21st century. So thank you all for coming. I appreciate the media's presence here. And of course, we're here for two reasons. One, because we have a victory. Yes, the struggle continues. Yes, the genocide continues unabated, right? But a victory was won in Halifax where Haligonians said, not in our name. We will not have a public spectacle, a tennis for genocide, where people masquerade in a macabre embrace of bloodiness, right? While tens of thousands of children and women and helpless people have been killed by a genocidal assault. So I think this is extremely important. We have here gathered a number of people from various organizations who have been in the forefront here in Halifax, but across nationally, and I would even say internationally, against this genocide, right? And so without any further ado, I surrender the floor to Dr. L. Jones, who needs no introduction.
Morning. Do I need that mic?
You can just use that one.
Oh, okay. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming in. Last week, Avi Peretz, president of the Israel Tennis Association, was quoted in RG justifying his country's inclusion in the Davis Cup, saying, quote, "We don't need to feel sorry for anything because we are defending ourselves," unquote. Peretz is not sorry about the unprecedented number of journalists and medical workers murdered. He is not sorry about children like Hind Rajab gunned down in cold blood. He is not sorry about withholding aid and starvation because he denies that is happening. He is not sorry. He is remorseless. He denies genocide. And Tennis Canada and Andy Fillmore have welcomed him to come to our community. Rather than speak out to defend innocent Palestinians or to condemn war crimes or to express any shred of empathy for murdered children, Tennis Canada has chosen to criticize only one group of people, those who oppose genocide and sports washing. While they tell us politics is beyond sports and cannot spare a word to be sorry about the 56 children who will be murdered while this match is taking place, Tennis Canada suddenly finds a lot to say when it comes to blaming protesters for the complete collapse of this ill-conceived event. The reality is that this event was comprehensively rejected by the people of Halifax. Reports indicate that only 1,400 tickets were sold in a 20,000-person venue as top players pulled out of the match. Rather than conceding their own failure and arrogance in imposing this event on a community that does not welcome genocide, Tennis Canada officials have chosen to mislead the public, blaming the failure of this event on hypothetical and unproven risks to safety. In fact, the Halifax Regional Police have stated that they were not consulted by Tennis Canada and that they are not aware of any threats cited in that public statement. This raises the question, is Tennis Canada relying on reports not from Canadian police, but from the very state committing the genocide in order to paint peaceful Canadians as a threat? Why is Tennis Canada smearing Canadians to support the racist anti-Palestinian narrative of the country that is supposedly our opponent? Rather than bringing sports to the public, it is clear that Tennis Canada's agenda has been to run cover for genocide and act as a willing stage for Israel to sports wash their crimes while disrespecting, smearing, and having contempt for Canadians who stand up for our supposed values such as human rights and international law. It seems Tennis Canada's priority is not Canada or Canadians at all. It is clear Tennis Canada has lost all credibility. This match was, is, and continues to be an embarrassment on the global stage, and Tennis Canada has involved Halifax in a shameful and incompetent debacle, costing taxpayers money while offering nothing to us but a closed-door defense of genocide, hidden away from public scrutiny. If running away from the public were an international sport, Andy Fillmore and Tennis Canada would certainly be competing for the championship. Is there anything more revolting than Tennis Canada, who calls the murder of an average of 28 Palestinian children daily by Israel complicated and a matter beyond sports, turning around and citing the threat of protest as a danger to ball boys and minors? Rather than repeating the lies of Tennis Canada, journalists should ask the former and current IDF soldiers playing in the match whether they have maimed, harmed, or murdered Palestinian children. Rather than focusing on made-up security threats from protesters, journalists should ask Tennis Canada if they performed any background checks on former members of the IDF they have brought into our community and whether law enforcement has vetted them for war crimes. Rather than suggesting that the people of Halifax protecting our own community from this horror are violent, Tennis Canada should take responsibility for the violence they have brought to us and imposed on our community by trying to make us complicit in this propaganda for genocide. In moving this match behind closed doors, Tennis Canada is not only attempting to hide, they are trying to confuse the public and distract us from protesting. Their actions show us that despite the people of Halifax going up against two nations funding and complicit in genocide, it is our power, our moral clarity, and our strength that has forced this match to be played in shameful silence. The same silence that has marked Tennis Canada's response to 23 months of genocide against Palestinians. It is appropriate that Tennis Canada should have to host a match in front of empty seats for the public and only officials as an audience, because that is all who are left who support starvation, bombing hospitals and schools, murdering journalists and doctors, and killing and targeting athletes. It is a perfect metaphor for this moment. The elites forging ahead with their support and silencing all protest, while the public raises their voices to say no. And we will continue to say no. We will continue to gather together to call for peace and to assert the value of Palestinian life. We have not been defeated by our politicians voting to fund this atrocity, and now that money has been returned to the city as Tennis Canada has not delivered on their promise to bring economic benefit and tourism to this city. Another lie. We are not defeated by the insults and smears thrown our way, and we will not be defeated by last-minute scrambling to attempt to mute opposition. We will march, and we will let Tennis Canada and everybody know that Halifax is not a harbor for genocide and war crimes. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jones, and I should have noted that she's also speaking on behalf of Athletes versus Genocide. Our next speaker is Ben Sichel for the Independent Jewish Voices.
Thank you very much. My name is Ben Sichel, and I'm here today representing Independent Jewish Voices Canada's Halifax chapter. Independent Jewish Voices, or IJV, is a group of thousands of Canadian Jews who hold a strong commitment to social justice and universal human rights. And it is as Jews that we have observed for almost 2 years the genocide Israel has been committing in Gaza, and in response said loudly, "Not in our name." Many of us grew up being taught that as Jews, we have a special connection with Israel and Israelis. Many of us have visited Israel. Some of us have family there. Israel claims it is a safe place for Jews, yet more and more Jews now recognize that Israel's ongoing violence, its decades-long occupation, and its entrenched system of apartheid make Jews less safe, both in the Middle East and around the world. But of course, it is Palestinians who have faced the most and the worst suffering as a result of Israeli aggression. Every day, IJV mourns the tens of thousands of Palestinians killed, maimed, wounded, and starved, with the tacit or overt support of Canadian politicians like Mark Carney or his local representatives like Lina Metlij-Diab, who occasionally issue tepid condemnations of some of Israel's most egregious crimes, all the while refusing to stop Canadian weapons from flowing to the Israeli army. It is in this context that IJV joined the call for Davis Cup matches featuring Team Israel to be canceled in Halifax. As a prominent member of IJV recently said, nothing will change until Israel is isolated on every front in every way. Just as international sporting bodies banned apartheid South Africa, Afghanistan under the Taliban, and Russia and Belarus from competing, so should sporting and artistic competitions ban athletes from a state currently committing genocide, according to numerous reputable human rights organizations, including Israeli ones, and the vast majority of the world's scholars on genocide. Some organizations have already tried to imply that the decision to close the Davis Cup game to fans, itself effectively a confession of wrongdoing, represents some sort of prejudice against Jews, or that the change is because of the actions of a small group of extremists. Nothing could be further from the truth. New polls show that a majority of Canadians now recognize that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. The extremists in this case are those who believe in business as usual. This match should be canceled altogether, and members of Independent Jewish Voices Canada will be demonstrating this weekend to demand that that happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Next up on our list is Asaf Rashid, who's well known as a lawyer here in Halifax. He will be representing the International Center for Justice for Palestinians, a Canadian chapter, and we'll be hearing from him from the United Kingdom, where he is at a very important gathering of that organization.
Good afternoon. I thank everyone for attending. I thank the media for attending. As noted by my friend and comrade Isaac Saney, ICGP Canada is the organization I represent, and we stand for freedom, justice, and self-determination for Palestinian people. Israel is committing genocide against Palestinian people in Gaza. This has been determined yet again by the International Association of Genocide Scholars in their authoritative statement that Israel is committing genocide against Palestinian people in Gaza. It is incontrovertible. There is simply no other opinion that has any credibility other than the fact that this is occurring. And all states, including all levels of government under them, must be compelled to do their part to ensure that the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of Genocide is upheld. This is an absolute and compulsory obligation. There's no derogation from it. There's no exception allowed to it. And we also have the International Court of Justice's opinion on the illegal Israeli occupation from July 2024. All states must do their part to extricate themselves from support of the illegal Israeli occupation of the occupied Palestinian territories. Francesca Albanese, UN Special Rapporteur on the occupied Palestinian territories this past summer, released her monumental report, Economy of a Genocide. And in that report, she noted, to avoid complicity in genocide, corporate entities must promptly cease all business activities and terminate relationships directly linked with and contributing to and causing human rights violations and international crimes against Palestinian people in accordance with international corporate responsibility and the law of self-determination. Tennis Canada and Scotiabank have implicated themselves in this very economic activity and must be held accountable. Meanwhile, the people of Halifax have done their part to directly ensure that this accountability is met, and they must be supported in these efforts. Governments, on the other hand, need to catch up with the people. They must be held accountable for their failures. So here we have a situation where the people have enforced international law, and successfully in this regard, with respect to stopping this spectacle of sports washing from taking place. This is all part of the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement to apply international law directly. The community was successful in stopping the sports washing spectacle, stopping the attempt to validate and normalize Israel while it is committing genocide. The fact that this event has been canceled from having public attendance and has been moved to a secret location, that it cannot be overestimated what a significant impact is being held on the attempt to try to hold Israel in a positive light. It simply has failed, and the people have done their part. This movement must continue, and it will continue. And it will continue to grow and build until Palestine is free. Thank you.
And before we move to our next speaker, which will be M. Bailey from Palestine Solidarity Halifax, I'd like to make a point as well that ties both L. Jones and Asaf Rashid's presentation in. Some of us were contacted by the police today about our so-called demonstration, worried about how it would be organized, how many people would be there. And it was pointed out to them that perhaps if they were interested in fulfilling their responsibilities as so-called lawful officers, they should investigate the Israeli delegation, their players and their team, to see, as Ellis pointed out and as Asif has pointed out, what crimes they would have participated in having been members of IDF, how many children, how many civilians deliberately targeted and eliminated from this world, whole families wiped out. Next speaker is M. Bailey, an activist of a tremendous commitment from Palestine Solidarity Halifax. Thank you, M.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is M. Bailey, and I'm a member of Palestine Solidarity Halifax. We are a group of neighbors across Kjipuktuk working in partnership with all groups organizing to end settler colonial occupations from Mi'kmaq to Palestine by pressuring our politicians to take action and share our demands. We are here today because Halifax is endorsing the starvation and murder of Palestinians. Andy Fillmore has welcomed potential war criminals to our city for a tennis match. This is no surprise. He has clearly shown his allegiance with Israel, a state actively committing a genocide and egregiously violating international law. He showed his corrupt allegiance first as a federal member of parliament and now as mayor of Halifax. On August 13th, Andy Fillmore voted to contribute to the starving and killing of Palestinians by giving $50,000 to the Davis Cup. 9 other city councilors joined him, and in doing so, joined the ranks of heartless, morally bankrupt politicians with dollar signs in their eyes. They sent a clear message that they endorse the genocide in Gaza. They saw what we've all been seeing for the past 2 years. Thousands and thousands of Palestinians being bombed to death, and thought, there's money to be made here. Let's play tennis. Halifax Council does not represent our city. Andy Fillmore does not represent our city. Tennis Canada does not represent our city. Representatives of a state committing genocide are not welcome here. This is not complicated. This is genocide. Every human rights organization and scholar has unequivocally said so. The Davis Cup, Tennis Canada, Andy Fillmore, and Halifax Council are sports washing an apartheid state. This is an affront to international law, human decency, and the conscience of our community. It doesn't matter whether the game is played in front of a live audience or being locked behind doors, protecting the financial interests of those who seek to profit off of a genocide. We stand firmly demanding that the Davis Cup games between Team Canada and Team Israel be cancelled and that Team Israel is suspended from the Davis Cup. We refuse to accept the anti-Palestinian racism expressed by Tennis Canada, suggesting that our efforts to hold our politicians responsible is a threat. Siding with genociders is a threat to our collective safety and the safety of our Palestinian friends and neighbors. In just a couple of weeks, almost 1,000 individuals and organizations have signed an open letter. Across our city, our province, and across Canada, the people have made themselves very clear. We will not stand on the wrong side of history. We will not be complicit in sports washing. And so we march. We call on our community to stand in solidarity with Palestinians on Friday, September 12th, meeting at the Garrison Grounds, where we will take our demands to City Hall. And on Saturday, September 13th at 12 p.m., we will meet at the Oval and march around the Commons, sharing our message loud and clear. I do believe that together we will see a free Palestine in our lifetime. From the river to the sea, Palestine is almost free. Thank you.
Thank you, for those words. And I'd like to make a point as well, as she was talking about Andy Fillmore and the Halifax Regional Council. They should follow the example of Burnaby, where city councillors voted to ask Ottawa to impose an arms embargo on the state of Israel, as the Canadian state continues to be complicit in this genocide. Next up, we'll be speaking Kate MacKeigan from Labour for Palestine, Kjipuktuk, Halifax. And I should make the point that internationally, workers have stood up and been in the forefront, from dock workers refusing to unload ships or load ships going to Israel that may be carrying arms. And recently, the Italian unions just announced that they themselves will be stepping up their struggles against this genocide. You have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's my and Labour for Palestine, Kjipuktuk, Halifax's very great honor and privilege to be organizing with these individuals and groups and to speak to you today. So thank you. From the moment this genocidal laundromat dressed up as a tennis match was announced, Labour for Palestine, Kjipuktuk, Halifax has expressed outrage, and we have been organizing and mobilizing to oppose, stop, and shut down this event that is an affront to all of us. All of the alibis and equivocations rolled out by local, provincial, and federal politicians and by sporting bodies like Tennis Canada normalize and facilitate genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. This is despicable, and it is an attempt to silence the struggle for Palestinian life, freedom, liberation, and self-determination. It also obscures the right of Palestinians to resist occupation and genocide by all means. Not only have Palestinian trade unions and civil society asked Canadians to oppose this gross sports washing event as part of the boycott, divestment, and sanctions BDS movement, Palestinian unions are calling on us, their union siblings, to take action. They've asked the global labor movement to treat Israeli products, especially arms and military goods, as hot cargo. Hot cargo is a labor tradition. Workers refusing to handle goods and services linked to oppression, war, human rights violations, or strike breaking. It's how we use our power on the job to show solidarity and disrupt injustice. Last week at a vigil in Genoa, one of Italy's busiest ports, Riccardo Redina of the Autonomous Dock Workers Collective, or CULP, warned that if they lost contact with their comrades in the global Samud flotilla, the latest civilian-led humanitarian mission in Gaza, even just for 20 minutes, they would shut down all of Europe. And they can do that. And that is solidarity. That is power. While many Canadian unions have expressed support for a ceasefire, two-way arms embargo, recognition of a Palestinian state, etc., Canadian unions must also recognize their ability to materially change society, particularly when it comes to the war machine. At the 55th Annual Convention of the Trades and Labor Congress of Canada in 1940, a resolution was put forward calling on unions to fight Nazi and fascist states. It stated that, quote, "In all fascist and Nazi nations, the free trade union movement has been outlawed. Its property and funds confiscated, its leaders persecuted, in many cases ruthlessly murdered. It is essential that profiteering and greed must be eliminated from the production of the sinews of war, so that there will be an equitable contribution on the part of capital comparable to that of the sacrifice of human life." Again and again and again, we see disavowal, but also a craven kind of indifference from those interested in facilitating the flow of capitalist accumulation versus any kind of accounting for the sacrifice and destruction of human life in Palestine. This indifference is both stark and egregious. 1 year ago, the United Nations General Assembly passed the resolution demanding that, quote, "All states are under an obligation not to recognize as legal the situation arising from the unlawful presence of Israel in the occupied Palestinian territory, and not to render aid or assistance in maintaining the situation created by the continued presence of Israel in the occupied Palestinian territory," end quote. Yet Canada continues to play an active role in Israel's illegal military occupation, from providing diplomatic cover to sending Canadian-made F-35 fighter jet parts and other weapons, to participating in a Davis Cup match that asks us all to pretend that nothing is wrong with a genocidal state getting a free pass to play tennis and act with lethal violence and impunity in Palestine. Canadian workers have the ability and obligation to push back against social injustice and human rights violations. As Isaac mentioned, from St. John longshoremen workers refusing to move military cargo bound for Iraq in 2003, to the Canadian Labour Congress declaring all Indonesian goods as hot cargo in 1999, demanding an end to military terror in East Timor. From telephone operators and postal workers refusing to call and to mail to apartheid South Africa in 1986, to longshore workers in St. John blocking a $121 million nuclear shipment until Argentina signed the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty and freed political prisoners in 1979, Canadian workers have exercised their power and capacity to stand with the workers of the world, and it's time to do so again. As it stands, all cargo to Israel today is hot cargo. It is all dual use, civilian or military or otherwise, in the service of genocide, occupation, and crimes against humanity. And a colonial capitalist enterprise that is both racist and inhumane. There is no legal shipment of anything to the state of Israel. In the same way, this tennis match is hot cargo. It's a toxic asset that implicates all of us. And we call on everyone, whether they be workers, people, players, to refuse to handle any of it in any way. It's the least we can do to support the struggle for a free Palestine. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kate. Next up is Tarek Gazawi, who needs no introduction. He's one of the most stalwart and eloquent voices for the local Palestinian community in the struggle for Palestinian liberation.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tarek. I'm a local Palestinian activist there. Halifax is a city that deserves to be known for peace, compassion, and justice. Yet, instead of living up to those values, our city is being used to host Israeli tennis team, a team that represents 77 years of occupation and 2 years of ongoing genocide. We were told Canada will stand for human rights, that protects freedom, and that defends justice. But what we see here today is a betrayal for those promises. And as a community, we refuse to stay silent. Tell me how I should feel when 94 members of my own family has been killed in Gaza. Entire family lines has been erased. A father losing children, a mother losing a husband, and a husband losing a wife. Families broken apart. Not a single building remains standing in Gaza. Almost 360,000 homes destroyed or damaged. The excuse we're giving that Hamas is in every building. A justification for mass destruction. Journalist. It's not only homes and families. 247 journalists has been killed so far. Their only weapons are microphones and cameras. Their lives taken for daring to tell the truth, and many more under the same threat. And while their blood still cries out for justice, CBC has chosen to air this game, ignoring the journalists of Gaza while giving a platform to Israel. And the excuse again, they're member of Hamas. Government hypocrisy. Canada rushed to welcome Ukrainians fleeing war. Canada opened doors to Syrians. But when it comes to Palestinians, after 2 years of genocide, suddenly the response is slow, cold. Minister Lina Diab tells us the government is doing its best. Its best. After 2 years, only 640 Palestinians have left Gaza, despite the 5,000 applicants being allowed. That's not the best. That's a betrayal. And Mark Kearney, so quick to condemn incidents in Israel just yesterday. Human lives do matter, for sure, but also remains silent on the genocide over 64,000 Palestinians killed in Gaza and the systematic ethnic cleansing that happens in the West Bank. Why the double standard? Why the Palestinians' blood is worthless? The world used sanctions and supports boycotts to isolate Russia. But when it comes to Israel, why not the same? Why not the accountability? Many Israeli players proudly served in the Israeli army. Their hands are not free of blood. And yet, Canada welcomes them, while Palestinians are left behind. More than 800 athletes has been killed in Gaza since October 7th. As the sports community continue to suffer under bombardment, famine, and collapse of infrastructure. This is not a war on families and home and journalists. It's also a war on sports, on young athletes, on the very spirit of humanity and competition. Canadian tennis players should refuse to play against criminals, just as sports bodies have done in the past against apartheid regimes and aggressors' nation. Playing this game is complicity. The calls to the media. And Canada and Halifax must stop these games. They must live up to their obligation under the UN, ICC, ICJ, and investigate whether these athletes are complicit in these crimes. To CBC, CTV, and all the other media outlets out there, stop airing this event. Do not be complicit. And to every CBC employee, you have families and you have children. How can you lend your skills to promote criminals while journalists in Gaza, your colleagues, are being killed? To the police, RCMP, and Canadian government official, Halifax must not roll the red carpet to the war criminals. Andy Fillmore, Tim Houston, Mark Kearney, and many others already have been marked by history for turning blind eyes to the Israel's crime. Halifax Police and RCMP, you still have a chance to choose the right side of history. And to the workers across this country, you go to work, support yourself and support your family, often struggling to make what you need. But you do not go to work to support war crimes or become accessories for violation of international law. It's time for workers to take a stand for justice, dignity, and for humanity. Despite this betrayal, there is one victory that this Canada-Israel's Davis Cup game will have no fans and no public attendance. It will not be a celebration. It will be hidden in the shadows, broadcasted only on CBC. That alone is a proof that Israel is not welcome here. But let me be clear. We will not allow this event to be comfortable for Israel and Tennis Canada. We will ensure that Israeli team does not enjoy their time in Halifax. This is not about sport. This is about justice, about standing against genocide, against occupation, and against complicity. Halifax must choose the right side of history, and history will remember who acted and who stayed silent. From the river to the sea, Palestine will and always will be free. Thank you.
Thank you, Tarek. Our hearts, our hopes, our dreams for a better future go out to all Palestinians, and particularly those in Gaza. Our next speaker is Najlaa Khaled, who will be speaking on behalf of Gaza Canadian families.
Everyone, my name is Najlaa Saney, and I'm part of the Gazan Palestinian Canadian group. Thank you for standing here today for humanity, justice, and human rights. Standing against Team Israel in Halifax, while Palestinians are facing mass murder, displacement, and the destruction of homes, schools, hospitals, infrastructure, and olive graves and farmlands. Every single day, we see overwhelming evidence of war crimes and crime against humanity, watching it unfold through our phone screens, unable to reach those we love. I stand here not just as a protester, but as a daughter whose family is still trapped in Gaza, living through genocide and starvation under the Israeli war machine, while the Canadian government remains silent and complicit. Every day, I wake up as a Palestinian Canadian carrying two words on my shoulders. One here, where I work, study, pay tax, and contribute to my community. And one in Gaza, where my mother, my siblings, their children, and their spouses are being bombed, starved, and waiting for Canada to keep the promise of evacuation under the Gaza Special Immigration Program that announced in January 2024. I have a mother, two sisters, 4 brothers, their spouses, and 13 nephews and nieces. 11 of them are children between the age of 2 months and 13 years old. My mother is 62 years old and lives with diabetes. Since the war began nearly 2 years ago, she has had no access to clean water, nutrition, food, or constant medication. She lives in a shelter that lacks every basic necessity. It doesn't protect her from the sun, the cold, the rain, or even the bombardments. Her health has getting worse and worse, and she has lost nearly 50 pounds dropping from 150 before the war to only almost 100 pounds now. I also have 3 nephews who were born during this war or during this genocide. Many times their parents couldn't find baby formula because of the complete blockade that Israeli government has imposed on Gaza, preventing aid from reaching people in a human and dignified way. 2 of them were hospitalized with signs of malnutrition. My family has been displaced countless times from the north of Gaza, from the town of Beit Hanun, reaching Rafah and going back to the middle of Gaza. And now they are staying in Gaza City, and they are facing another displacement as the Israeli army orders people in Gaza to evacuate to the south. But to where? There is no safe place left in Gaza. They have no energy to move, no financial means to cover the cost, and most painfully, no hope that the world will stop this genocide and protect them in the last moment. And just today, when I called them, they told me that they will not move anywhere. They will face their destiny and that their next and final destination will be to heaven. And now Canada is bringing Israeli tennis team to play without even considering how it makes us as Palestinians, Palestinian Canadians feel, how it is painful, disappointing, and frustrating. While our families are being bombed, starved, and denied safety, Canada chose to host and celebrate every team that represents the genociders of our families and people in Gaza Strip. For nearly 2 years, we have written letters, sat in offices, traveled to Canada, stood in vigils, and begged for meetings. We have lost jobs, lost sleep, and lost pieces of ourselves in the process. We are grieving while being forced to advocate, fighting racism in our community, in our government, while mourning our families' member in Gaza. This is soul-crushing. The anxiety every day that phone rings, wondering if it is news for another death. The sleepless night drafting appeals that to go unanswered. The humiliation of being ignored by the minister, Lina Diad-Mitlish, the Minister of Immigration, who should advocate for us and protect us. And instead, she is ignoring us and she is not agreeing to meeting with the families. We are tired, but we cannot stop because every day of delay means another life lost. This is not just a policy failure. This is a trauma. This is a discrimination. This is Canada telling Palestinian Canadians that our pain doesn't matter and our families' lives in Gaza also don't matter. Canada cannot remain silent, and Canada cannot continue to send weapons and military technology that fuel this genocide. Canada and Halifax cannot host and allow this match to take place. It's a violation of international law. This is not simply a tennis match. It's a sport washing and a war crime. It is not a celebration, it's a genocide. And we will not stand by silently, and no one will be free until Palestine is free. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Najlaa, for those very powerful words. And as the world's people have said, in our millions, in our billions, we are all Palestinians. So this press conference is shall we say, a demonstration of unity of all those forces in motion in Halifax against the genocide and in support of the Palestinian struggle for liberation. I'm a member of the Halifax Committee Against Imperialist War and Genocide. And we have won an important victory. Tennis Canada and Scotiabank Arena have been forced to retreat from the shameful Tennis for Genocide spectacle, deciding to hold, as we know, the Canada-Israel Davis Cup match behind closed doors. But while we have won an important victory, the struggle still continues. For example, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation has chosen, as was pointed out by Tarek and others, to step into this void and become the public megaphone for genocide. By live streaming the Davis Cup match, the CBC has granted Israel precisely the platform that public outrage and people's protest had stripped away. In doing so, it has placed itself squarely, this is CBC, on the side of occupation, apartheid, and mass murder. I know in the CBC newsrooms there are grumblings, by those who work for CBC, but unfortunately they feel quite powerless in the face of those who control CBC, in the face of a government that has wholeheartedly thrown its support behind whatever its words, whatever its performativity to this genocide. By live streaming the Davis Cup match, the CBC, as I said, has granted this platform. But the obscenity is staggering. Israel, as has been pointed out already, has deliberately and systematically targeted journalists. Hundreds have been killed, their cameras and voices silenced under bombs and bullets, precisely because truth is the enemy of genocide. Yet the CBC, Canada's so-called public broadcaster, colludes, as I said, by broadcasting Israel's propaganda spectacle, whitewashing mass slaughter and lending respectability to this genocidal state. This is not neutrality. This is not journalism. This is complicity. The CBC's decision to broadcast the Davis Cup match between Canada and Israel shows once again that Canadian institutions and corporations, the state, is deeply entangled in the machinery of ethnic cleansing and the extermination or the attempted extermination of a people. They provide cover, legitimacy, and applause for crimes against humanity, even as Palestinian journalists are murdered in cold blood to suppress the truth of the drive, the maniacal and psychotic drive to annihilate and exterminate their people. No camera, no broadcast, no slick production can conceal reality. This is not sport, it is a celebration of genocide. Halifax and the people of conscience across this country and the world will not forget. The CBC's betrayal is written in the blood of journalists, children, and entire families wiped from the earth. History will remember, and history will condemn. We call on all Haligonians and all people of conscience to raise their voices and show that genocide cannot be normalized in sport, not in culture, not anywhere. Join us for the March for Palestine on Friday, September 12th at 2:30 p.m. gathering at the Garrison Grounds. And on Saturday, September 13th at 12 noon at the Halifax Commons. The March for Palestine is about justice. Together, let us rise to declare that there can be no normal sporting relations or any relations of any kind with a genocidal regime. Genocide is not a game. No tennis for genocide. No sports washing war crimes, not in Halifax. No harbor for war crimes against humanity. Thank you. And thank you all for coming.
And I just wanted to reiterate, thank you very, very much, Isaac, for all you've done putting this together. And I just wanted to reiterate that on the 12th, we'll be marching from the Garrison Grounds to City Hall. On the Saturday, it'll be starting at the Oval, marching around the perimeter of the Commons, and ending up back at City Hall.
And I'd like to say this is
ending up back at the Oval.
Yeah. This is a collective endeavor. There are numerous people here behind who've done this. And I was remiss. I want to thank the Bus Stop Theatre for once again so generously providing us with a venue for this press conference. Okay. And I appreciate the media being here. For our CBC colleagues, this is not meant to be an attack on you. The institution itself, I hope, will come under democratic control. And I've had personal conversations with journalists, who feel the restrictions and so on, right? But history will remember, history will speak. And in time, people will be held accountable for what happened, right? We know this, right? The world has stood up. In their millions and their billions, they are saying not only are they Palestinians, they're for a better world. They're for a world in which genocide is not normalized or routinized, right? And so we stand with the voice of the people. And as was pointed out by Kate, workers, right, who produce the value, who make this world function, right, are increasingly standing up and using their power to say not in our name. Well, thank you all for coming, and this concludes the press conference, but we're available, all of us here, for discussions and so forth. I'd like to say that the testimonies from our Palestinian comrades, our Palestinian sisters and brothers, right, move us so much. Thank you so much, and a warm embrace. Any questions? Oh, I forgot. And this, any questions or?
Yeah, now that we can pull you for some long time. It'll be easier for broadcast.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Free Palestine.
Yeah. Thanks for the song, y'all.